What does the Mishnah Berura say about eating matzah? That's what we are going to be learning about today. Mishnah Berura comments that on this line of the Shulchan Aruch that you should eat the matzahs while reclining. Okay. Very important, you got to recline. What does the Mishnah Berura say? On the left side, one should recline. So the Mishnah Berura over here comments involve the fisha beira shtei brachos. The person said two brachos. The kavanasa hayal shleim of al prusa. The fikach sarich le'achal mishnayim. He said two brachas, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, as well as alachilas matzah. Right? His intention was on the full one and on the broken one. That's why he needs to eat for both of them. Veseba while reclining, look earlier in Siman Tafai and Beis Sif Zayin, the halachas of reclining over there as well as the Ramah. Biyachad, Mishnah Berura over here says that you should eat with them together while reclining together. That means the top matzah that was full and the middle matzah which was broken. Shim yochel metachila, kazayis alamoitzi dainim min hashleim. If you're going to eat first a kazayis of the hamotzi, meaning from the complete matzah, on top, horihu kemafsik bein birchas alachilas matzah lachila prusa she'aleh kai bracha. It's considered as if you're interrupting between the bracha that you made of alachilas matzah, the second bracha that you made, and that matzah is going on the broken piece of matzah, aka the middle one. So therefore, it would be an interruption. And if you first eat from the broken piece before, and then afterwards from the complete piece on the top, it's also considered an interruption. The honey poskim to Savri, according to those poskim who hold the birchas alachilas matzah kai al shlema, that the bracha of alachilas matzah refers to the whole one. The alkin, and therefore yochelim biyachad, you should eat them together. That's the idea why you eat them together, so that there's no interruption. Should eat them together. Kazayas from each one. Kazayas is the size of an olive. From each one. Mishna Berura says, Mina pruso bevadai sorech kazayas. From the broken one, a person certainly needs to eat a kazayas worth. To hamavarchin alachilas matzah, because you're saying the bracha of alachilas matzah. The ein achila pachusa min mik kazayas. There's no eating which is less than a kazayas. Aval prusas hamotzi. When it comes to the piece of the hamotzi, halo kaimalam, we hold the hamotzi mevarchin afilu al pachos mekazayas v'kanitzkala al. The siman reishud. When it comes to the eating of the hamotzi, we hold that hamotzi make the brachan, even if it is something less than a kazayas. So the idea over here is that what? From the broken one, the middle one, you certainly need a kazayas, because we're making the bracha of alachilas matzah. Okay? There's no such thing as eating. It's not considered halachically eating if it's less than the size of an aleph. But right? So that's why from the prusa. But from the piece that you made hamotzi on, aka the top matzah, we hold that you could make hamotzi. Not only can you, but you should recite the bracha of hamotzi, even if you're not having a kazayis worth of challah. A siman rish yud discusses the bracha achrona, the bracha afterwards. You don't bench if it's less than a kazayis, that's for sure. Then there's a whole discussion about washing without a bracha. If it's less than a kazayis, maybe a kabeya, it's a kufnin and cheshayla. But nevertheless, even if one has a small amount of food, he has to say bracha beforehand. El Mishum, before we continue this is going, by the way, on the Shulchan Aruch. It says, if you're not able to, you should eat them together, kazayis from each one, aka kazayis from the top matzah and a kazayis from the middle matzah. Okay, continuing. Ella Mishum, rather because the Yish poskim to since there are some rabbis who hold the Birchas Hamotzi Kaya Laprusa, Birchas Alachilas Matzah Kaya Lashlema. Since some rabbis hold that the bracha of Hamotzi refers to the broken matzah, and the bracha of Alachilas Matzah refers to the full matzah on top. So you have a whole discussion about there. It's a little technical and complicated. Excuse me, lakach sarach mikol achas kazayis. That's what you need from each one. You have to eat a kazayis. The achronim agree. The sarach rach lahachnis lapiu eshtei hazeisim bebasachas uloaskan. You need to only enter into your mouth both of them that are the size of olives simultaneously and crush them. Aval and chew them. Aval in mechuyev levalam bebasachas, but you're not obligated to swallow them simultaneously. Aladai sheyavliya tizayis laerech bebasachas va'acher kach yivla hashar. Rather, it's enough if you absorb the kazayis, approximately a kazayis in one shot, and afterwards you swallow the rest. Ubidi Evid, post facto. Second case, best option. Afilu bala kazayis ma'mat yatsa. Even if you swallowed a kazayis slowly, you would still fulfill your obligation. Kol shalo, as long as kol shalo shaha mitachilos achiloso ad soifa yosim k'dechilas pras. As long as you didn't delay from the beginning of your eating until the end of the eating more than the time it takes to eat a slice of bread. Next, Mr. Berura.
At the end of the day, he's saying, I mean, you have to you have to throw a whole kazayas into your mouth, or you can continuously bite, have a whole kazayas in your mouth.
We're don't get confused. It's preferably two. Kazayas from the middle, kazayas from the top one.
No, I'm saying, didn't he say something about that, having it in your mouth?
Yes. So that's saying you don't need to swallow them at once, as long as you're chewing them at once.
So you continue chewing. Fine.
You just put them in your mouth at once, but you don't have to swallow them at once. That's what he's saying.
Does he seem like to crush it up with atchila and then put a whole kazayas in your mouth?
No, you just
chew.
Yeah, but meaning put it in one shot if you are able to.
One shot meaning
simultaneously. If you could, that's what he means. Crush it up, because if it's all in its a big form, you can't fit it in.
So it was basically folded up and throw
Yes.
a whole kazayas in your mouth.
That's right.
Which would be
a kazayas in the middle and a kazayas on the top.
But practically, how
what's the size of a kazayas? That's a whole discussion. There are different opinions about the exact.
It's like is it a half?
At least the size of a dollar. Could depend on how.
That's it.
And how thick it is and how thin it is. It could be various factors. There's a lot of different opinions.
Yeah, how many kazayas are in a regular, hand matzah? Do you think?
I said it could depend on the thickness, the thinness, all those different factors.
Well, roughly, like maybe 2 or 3, or yeah.
Now, the thing is, if you can't do this, if you can't put it all in at once, so there's another option, right? And that is the continuation of the Shulchan Aruch. You can't eat both simultaneously, size of the kazayis. First, you should eat the hamotzi, and then afterwards, you should eat the matzah. AKA, first you eat from the top matzah, and then you eat from the middle matzah. Mishna Berura in Yud says, Hi hashleim al yona. When we say you have the hamotzi first, that refers to the top matzah, like I just said. Shem'ikar hadin aleh kai birchas hamotzi. Because mikar hadin, on that, the bracha of hamotzi refers to. Below havi kehefzig b'di'evid masha oichlo bein Birchas achilas matzah la'achilas aprusa. And it's not considered an interruption, that which you are eating, between the bracha of achilas matzah and eating the broken piece. Remember, we were talking about before how there could be a potential interruption. If you're going to eat from the top matzah, aka the shlema, before you have from the middle matzah, which the bracha of al-achilas matzah refers to. This is saying it's not an interruption, that you're eating from the top one, between the bracha of al-achilas matzah and eating from the middle one. Since it's coming for that size of the olive, for that kazayis itself, the hainu, the soyrich birchas hamoitzi, shesarich levarach al kazayis shel, meaning the needs of the bracha of hamotzi that you would need to say before consuming a kazayis from the middle piece from the broken. It also has a connection to it. In other words, the bracha of hamotzi also has a shaychus to the middle broken matzah as well. It's a prerequisite. It's a means to the end. It's a means to an end. Excuse me, to get to the bracha, to get to the middle matzah which is broken, because in order to have that matzah, you have to say a hamotzi as well. So therefore, it wouldn't be considered an interruption that someone is having the top matzah, aka the shleima, before consuming the middle matzah which is broken. Now, because for a poskim, where are we? Right. Kasu apoiskim. Shesorach le'echol gam kezayis rishon shel hamoitzi ba'aseba. You gotta eat the first kezayis of hamotzi while reclining as well. Don't just think it's the middle matzah, it's the alachilas matzah. No, this is the whole thing that we're talking about. The first kezayis of hamotzi, you gotta eat while reclining. That's what it comes down to. This point cannot be overemphasized. The truth is, this is not the simon that really deals with reclining. It's coming up as a side tangent. However, whenever you're eating matzah, whenever you're drinking the 4 cups of wine, you've got to recline. The Ber Halacha. Tell me about the Ber Halacha. Take a look at the continuation of the Shulchan Aruch. Afterwards, you take a kazayas of maror and submerge it in charosis. Don't leave it in there too long, because then you're gonna lose the bitterness of the maror. Now, because of that reason, says the Shulchan Aruch, you need to shake the charosis off and make the bracha brachat Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Sheki L'Shem Zavitzivanu Alachilas Maror. I'm pretty sure we say Sheki L'Shem Zavitzivanu. It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. So you say Alachilas Maror, v'yoichlenu b'loy haseba, and you eat it while you're not reclining. Right? The rest of the Shulchan Aruch, which we're not going to cover in today's session, is going to talk about korech. We're going to come back to that, and that's going to be these long Mishna Beruras over here. We're going to come back to this in the next session. Today we're going to go a little deeper on what we're learning over here on the page of the Mishna Berura, like we usually do, to understand it better. So this is the idea over here. Don't leave it in there too long. So remember, charosis, you got to shake it off for the maror. Easy way to remember, maror is supposed to taste bitter, not sweet. Don't.
All you do is technically dipping it. You're not submerging.
Some people, they take the charosis, they plant it on top, and they put it in.
Oh, it tastes so good.
Stay away from that. Of course, it tastes good. It's made out of apple, cinnamon, and sugar. Why wouldn't it taste good? All right. Now, V'acher kach shalachilas matzah, says the Mishna Berura Yud Aleph. Bidi Evid. Im ochel kazayis echad, beim in a shleimu, beim in a prusa yatsa. Bidi Evid. Second best. Post facto. Not preferable. If you eat a kazayis worth, the size of an olive worth of matzah, whether from the top or
Animal to pick
a
outside the
broken
save.
piece in the middle, you would in fact fulfill your obligation. But again, preferably it's a kazayis from each. Eat a kazayis mar. Yud beis v'afilu achol kelach shalim. Even if you ate one full stalk. Im ha'olen with the leaves. Kibriyasa, like the way it was created low yatsa. One would not fulfill his obligation. Kol she'ein bo kazayis. Kol she'ein bo kazayis. As long as there is not a kazayis. You see from over here the seriousness of having a kazayis amara. Fellas, just take a moment and think about this. There aren't so many halachas that we learn that we say that if you don't do it, you won't fulfill your obligation at all. It's as if you didn't fulfill the mitzvah. This over here, we are learning, the Truma Sadeshin is specifying, you could have even eaten a full stalk with the leaf of the maror, which in halacha, in Hilchos Tarubos in Yoredeya, there's a concept of a beria. It's a full entity, and which also has halachic ramifications in Siman Reshud. It could very well be that even if it's not the sheer, the amount of a kazayis, the size of an aleph, there would be an obligation to recite a bracha achrona, a bracha after eating it, because it's a whole entity. Nevertheless, the chiddush is, the insight is over here that the Mishna Berura is quoting the Trumas Hadeshin saying that you would not fulfill your obligation at all. This is something to think about. By the way, I think that the Sha'ar Tziyun actually is going to talk about what I just said. Sha'ar Tziyun Yud Beis says, "V'afil ulaman damer le'elsim in Reishud sif aleph the davar chashav kibiyotzim avarchin bracha achrona afilu b'deleke kazayis hachalei kabir yafilu machlim asharashib shari ein yotzim b'sharashib." It's exactly what I just said. You wouldn't be good over here. And the lumdus is fascinating. The logic behind this is incredibly interesting. Let's say you have the maror with its roots. Guess what? You don't fulfill your obligation of maror with the roots. So now the shroshim de rishos, the optional roots of the maror, come along and nullify the maror, which is a mitzvah. It negates, it cancels out the maror, which is a mitzvah.
What's the case?
Shroshim de rishos mevatlin maror de mitzvah. The roots of the maror, if you had it kibiru, if you had it as a whole entity, you had the maror, you had the stalks, you had the actual leaf, you had the roots. One problem. The roots aren't part of the maror. Therefore, it's considered something optional. The optional item which is mixed into the ingredients of the recipe, the maror recipe over here, is going to cancel the actual bitterness and the actual obligation and mitzvah of the actual maror, and then one wouldn't fulfill his obligation.
So in cases you have a piece of lettuce and you put some roots on the lettuce,
No, there are roots attached to it.
roots attached to the lettuce.
Yeah.
But what I mean, okay, okay.
I don't know if we have this nowadays.
It could be.
I don't know what lettuce roots are.
When you take, the actual
What are lettuce roots?
horseradish is made out of. What's horseradish? I mean, I forgot what it's made out of.
No. Okay. Okay. We have two types of maror out there. This is another simon. I just it's a problem. I assume that everyone already knows what I know. I try to explain everything, but sometimes I realize that I just assume that everyone realizes, so I just don't say it. But you got to say it and be very, very clear. It's very important. There's two types of maror, main types. There's the maror, which is the lettuce, all right, the lettuce, and then there's the maror, which is the white stuff.
Horseradish.
That's what they call it, which is the actual bitter. We're talking about lettuce. Talking about lettuce over here.
But there's also what the horseradish is made out of. It has roots. In other words, like before you.
That could be
That's what I'm
also.
saying.
That could very well be.
No, and then you take maybe that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, that could very well be. It could very well be the roots of the horseradish. That makes sense. I'm looking over here. I'm just Googling the roots of lettuce. I don't think this really comes with our lettuce that we have.
Yeah, I think
The roots get cut. I don't think we have it on the lettuce, so it makes sense it's on the horseradish.
Google the roots of.
No, I'm looking at it right now.
What is horseradish?
I mean, you could Google right now, lettuce with roots. I've never seen this before. I think it
Yeah.
always gets cut off. So it could very well be talking
It's a
about
head
the,
of lettuce, you know, it's.
right. It could very well be talking about the horseradish roots. Uh, Horseradish roots. So yeah.
There's this thing.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
this
yeah,
thing has
exactly.
roots from it.
So right. So that's the problem over here. So the horseradish in our family, we usually always have it fresh and sharp. Right. So if you Google horseradish roots, so you'll see, yeah. So this gets cut up. Now this could be an issue.
So the Shatzi is saying that you have these roots.
That's right.
And so what's the Messias? You have the roots and you're just eating the roots and it's not, it's just a birria, it's not
That's
a
the problem.
full-fledged,
That's right.
and that's the problem.
The roots they're optional. Now I want to just say something over here because I'm very nice. So I'm gonna share very practical halachas in Hilchos Berura, which is in another place, but it's very practical to know, which is there's a whole machlokas what maror is. Is it the lettuce or the horseradish? So I'll tell you what I do based on from what I remember learning years ago, and the shirim on Rabban.com, which is first have the lettuce. That's all.
By itself.
Then you could have the actual bitter stuff. You could actually have that.
Messias or just the taste of it?
Whatever you have a little, because I use a lot of that.
Yeah, that is
Because I use a
a
lot. So have the lettuce, and then for the korech sandwich, so you have both in that.
That's okay.
But that's already the sandwich. That's not already the mar.
But is it a problem
So-
to have the lettuce with a little bit of horseradish on it?
So that's why I try to first just have the lettuce.
Why, because we're saying, because of the two, it might notify.
Yeah, there's a whole
Because both
discussion.
are rabbanim.
Yeah, there's a whole
Just worried that one's not Mara.
From what I remember learning, is to cover all opinions. That way you cover everything. If you have it just separate first.
This is the same box as yesterday.
And remember, you don't recline, preferably. So now comes along the Shara Tzion and says Velinira. According to Baham opinion, Hashit desivoy hatoira hu le'achol maror zecher le'vayamaru eschayem. The Torah commanded eat the maror because they made our lives bitter. Upachos mikazayis lo chashva hatoira lezecher. Less than a kazayis, the Torah didn't consider it a remembrance. Bim kain my mahani shu bir yavu chashav. What's the difference is if it's a whole entity and it has importance. Halok upanim b'kol shehu lekazecher. If it's just a small amount, there's no remembrance over here. Hasam shayni de mishum chashivu sabir chashuv lahaydus Hashem. Very is different because if you have a whole entity, if you have one grape, that already has an importance to it. That is a chashivus, and therefore it's enough to thank Hashem for. And it could very well be that you'd be obligated to recite a bracha achorna afterwards. That's why the Shulchan Aruch recommends not eating less than a kizayis if you're eating a whole entity of something. Over here is different though. You gotta have the bitterness. So they say over there, if you want to have just one grape, cut the grape in half before you eat it. Therefore, it's not a whole entity. You eat half of a grape, and then you eat the other half of the grape.
And then you're getting into problems with the bracha corona.
That's right. It's not a whole entity anymore when you say the bracha on it.
So therefore you don't need 4 or 5, I guess, to make a bracha corona.
Okay, yeah, that's how many you need. Again, every grape size comes different. There's some bigger, some smaller. Right.
So you get out of the bag.
That's now. Why do you submerge it in the charosas? Kedei lahamis eris, in order to kill the poison. Type of poison in the maror kills it. Should be psycho in there. Some places don't fully submerge it; they just slightly dip it. The obvious question is, why don't we dip it the rest of the year then?
So good at checking.
So then why aren't we good at checking this time of year?
Maybe I was saying that they did.
Sharatzion. Yeah, why is it Minoga Basena Biadena? Shkayach, you're going circles around the question. Look over here that it says it, right? Am I right or right? Right? Why? What's that? Some say that the Charoisis is Mishum Mitzvah Zeichel Tapuach. Remember the apples. Tachas Satapuach or Yisicha. Women arouse their husbands to have children under the apple trees. Without reclining, this commemorates Avdus, slavery. We don't recline for slavery. If a person wants to eat it while reclining, he's allowed to eat it while reclining if he wants to. This is the Mishna Berura. I didn't think that this would take so long, but it did. So, bad news. We might need to go overtime.
Good news.
We haven't hit the 10-minute warning yet. Okay, we're doing good today. Over here, basically what it gets discussed over here is when the person making the bracha on the matzahs distributes them and everything. Basically, in short, you can go through this on your own time. You know, you got to make sure everyone's gonna have the two kazesim like we just said.
We have like Shemas on the side, but
Right,
it's hard to
exactly.
get everybody from the actual.
Exactly. So there's an idea of eating from the actual matzah. If you can't, you can't. You know, for years I've always had my own Seder plate, even before I was married. Not plate, but matzahs.
What does it say?
Once I started learning these halachas, I did it myself.
The box?
And also once I did these halachas and I saw a lot of times people don't know how to cut the matzahs the right way. It gets tricky and everything, you know. Do it the right way, you know. Now you won't need to look at your Haggadah what to do on the fly. Now you just think about, oh, why are we having the matzah? What's the matzah about? We have freedom. Look at this, amazing. Anyways,
Also what dichotomy. Lots of freedom, lots of rachamoni.
yes, that we discussed in one of the Divrei Torah and the Haggadah. We got to keep moving with that. We still have more to do. We only covered 20 pages out of 180, and it's growing also. So some of the guys said I should publish it this year. I don't want to publish it yet. But first safe I'm going to publish Yeshua. I'm going to have no hesitation when it's ready. All right. Gotta just keep moving with with that. Now, that's basically what they discuss over there. Now, I think that there was a few other interesting tidbits over here. Someone who talks while he's eating the matzah. According to the Shulchan Aruch Harav, he would still fulfill his obligation, b'di'evet, and he wouldn't need to go back as long as he didn't talk in between the recitation of the brachos and the consumption. But be careful, it's not preferable. Someone who's unable to eat a kazayis of matzah due to a medical illness of some sort, Charles Chuvas Or Letzion and Chela Gimel, Perik Tesvav, Chuva Tesvav says, eat as much as you could. Some say that chatzi shir, half of a shir, half of an amount you could fulfill your obligation on. It's still a mitzvah to eat a chatzi shir, even though you wouldn't fulfill your obligation. Rather, in other words, there was still some sort of mitzvah associated with eating half of the required amount, even though you would not fulfill your obligation. Therefore, subsequently, if after you had the minimal amount, you were able to eat more, you are obligated to eat more. If you're eating like we said before, the maror, which is very bitter, they call it the chrein. The Stipler says, no problem. It's hard to dip that. Therefore, take it and put it on top. Put it on top. If you're using the chrein for the maror,
It's hard to dip it into the charosis.
that's right. So you just put the charosis on the top. What if you ate the matzah and then you threw it up? Remember around 10 years ago, I wrote a kuntris on all of the halachas that are relevant to throwing up. It's incredible how many halachas there. Would you fulfill your obligation of owning Shabbos, Yontif? Do you need to eat again? Bracha Achronas, benching, all sorts of shilas.
Yes.
So the shaila is, let's say you eat the matzah and then you throw up after. The Minchas Chinuch writes, you would fill your obligation. This is talking about you threw up, and then you ate some more, you fill your obligation. Now, the chiddush is that even if it didn't go into your stomach, because matzah is about eating it, even if you vomited immediately after you ate the matzah, the Stipler says you would fulfill your obligation. However, if you merely chewed it and then spit it out of your mouth before it even went down, even slightly, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach writes in a Shal Chuvas Mincha Shlomo Chilik Al Simin Sad Yalf Os Yud Zayin, you would not fulfill your obligation. And even though you got some pleasure with your mouth when you were chewing it, that doesn't count. You have to maximize the amount of pleasure you're going to get until it goes to your stomach. So they're lenient over here. I don't think this is so pashut actually, but they seem to rule this way. Have to look into that more. That's how they seem to rule, though. Actually, could happen. If people they get sick, they don't eat a lot till the seder, and then they just have all the yayin and all the matzah. It's every single year. A lot of times, I always after the matzah, and then the soup comes out. I always get a little weird feeling in me. Always, every single year. Every single year. It's always
You're having 2 glasses of wine on an empty stomach, right?
exactly. That's why I try to have something now before the seder. A little, not too much. A little shahakol, a little brei eats, a little something, just so that I'm not totally on empty.
What's the nafkamina? What you're saying? If you vomit food,
Just give me 2 minutes of it. Just want to finish this. Is that someone? It's very difficult for them to eat two kazesim. Women, children, they could be lenient. Just have one kazais. Again, you have to look into the shur. Yeah, beshufi, hakel beshufi. Should die lehem b'kazais achin. You could be lenient to them. Have a kazais. David, what did you say before?
what's the difference? If you vomit food, you're not getting any benefit from the food.
Yeah. Now,
What's the
benefit.
difference between which end? What's the difference between which end it comes out of? Do you? I mean, obviously, I think when your body processes food better, it goes. It's. But
Yeah.
I'm saying when you vomit, it means you're not getting any nutrients from the food.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I'm not
Huh.
sure. All right, let's stop here.
I guess you kaya.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful day. Tomorrow we're going to continue with Korech.
Right.
Good stuff.